Sometimes I feel like I want to fly without no wings. I elevate inside my mind.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Barkoff, and welcome to episode 8 of the Sober Cold Bear podcast. Joining me today is my good friend Ted Rubin, and we'll introduce him in just a quick second. First of all, Ted, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. Just to let everybody know, this podcast covers a number of different topics. It does cover sobriety. It does cover recovery. It also covers things like mental health, business, entrepreneurship, and I asked Ted to be here, and I'm gonna use a quote that I found in an article. Historically, it says Ted's philosophy that he stated was, "Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass; it's about learning to dance in the rain." And Ted Rubin is a leading social media marketing strategist. He's an international keynote speaker. He's a business advisor. He's an author. He has a term over his shoulder there. It says "return on relationship," which I've gotten to know over the years. And Ted, welcome to the Sober Cold Bear. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get to a conversation.
Well, Matt, I'm excited to be here. And the most important reason is that I miss you, man. I mean, we spent some time together. You were, like you mentioned as we were when we were first getting on here, that might probably was during the depths of your addiction. But
yes, it was.
We don't always recognize certain things as addiction. You drank. I mean, you engaged in certain things. We have friends that we think of do that more or less, but I saw a lot of ups and downs with you, but what I loved is that you always welcomed me. You always made me feel a part of a team. I work for many, many years now as a consultant. And, fortunately, the company that you were with at the time and that I consulted for, Dynamic Signal, I consulted for them for 7 years. So this was not a short-term gig, but it was still one of many. And I don't, people change, new employees come in and out. A company like Dynamic Signal grows dramatically, and there are a lot more players. And as a consultant, you don't always feel a part of the team. And I just want to mention that again. You always made me feel that, regardless of what you were going through or maybe the challenges you were facing. I think return on relationship was always at the heart of everything you did. As far as about me, I'm an old dude. I'm 67 years old. I know that they say that's all about mindset, but still, as it goes, I'm a lot older than I was when I was in my 20s, regardless of how much time I have got left beyond that. So I'm not going to go through everything, but basically I got involved in the digital space early in 1997 with a guy named Seth Godin, who a lot of people have probably heard of. He's one of the most famous marketers in the world.
Absolutely.
I was fortunate to work with him. I was fortunate to work with him in a stage of my life where I decided I wanted to get involved in the internet. It was new. The heart of it was, a lot of it was up in New York. And I decided to move back from Florida. So I left my family for a little while we did the transition. I made the mistake of living with my in-laws for a while in New York.
I've done that.
Don't ever live with your in-laws, especially if they're like the Costanzas. And they and if you watch Seinfeld, you know what I'm talking about. They basically woke up every morning screaming at each other.
Yes.
But certain things are meant to be. And what happened there was, I'm not an early riser, but because of that, I made sure to be out of that house before anybody woke up, because I just didn't want to hear the morning craziness. And because of that, I arrived in the Yo-Yo-Dine office, which was the company that Seth Godin ran, and my first internet job, before anybody else. And guess who's an early riser? Seth. So I got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with him. He was writing his first marketing bestseller. At the time, it obviously wasn't a bestseller at the moment. He had written an article in Fast Company called Permission Marketing. He was extending it to his book. And he liked to hold forth. And I, was at a stage of my life, and I've learned this as I've grown, to shut up when there's genius in the room. And especially when you can learn from somebody, genius or not, somebody where you can absorb. And I just learned a great deal, and it vaulted me into this space in the early days when e-commerce was just moving a catalog online, and online media was just magazines kind of reprinted or photographed online. And I grew with it. So it evolved. I went from that to social commerce, to building content with influencers, which we called bloggers back then, before they were called influencers.
Sure.
And retail media, and it just accelerated into my relationship with brand innovators and all the people I got to meet through that. So right now I'm kind of at what I consider the twilight of my career. Like I say, I have basically, rebuilt my career over and over. I had to reinvent myself so many times that when people ask me what my goal is, I'm like, my goal is to ride this wave into shore and not to have to paddle out again.
Yeah.
So, part of that means continuing with what I've learned and what I'm good at. And these days, especially these days, I mean, it's always been about education and learning and staying on top of things, but things are happening so quickly now that, I do my best to read a lot. I actually don't read much anymore except from this device. I listen. I discovered Audible during COVID, and
Sure.
it's changed my life in a way of my ability to absorb content. So
Yeah. Well, I listen to I listen obviously to a lot of podcasts. Obviously, this is a podcast. I started this as I'd been planning this for a while, and then I launched it. But I think you said something that's that I want to click into a little bit, and that is reinventing yourself. I mean, I think that's something that I focus in on all the time. Just because you have a job doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doing the same thing every single day. I also think it's good to differentiate yourself and go do things that challenge you, that are outside of your comfort zone. For instance, I launched a health and wellness company a few years ago. I launched this podcast. I'd never done a podcast before. And you've always been somebody that I've looked up to as a person that is, always outspoken, always, sharing your opinion. But really it's around the reinventing of yourself and how you transpond that and move that over into how business runs, I think has always been something that I have appreciated about you.
Well, one thing I want to address, because I think this is an important thing, especially at different points of your life, but especially for me now, this idea of stepping outside your comfort zone. Reinventing yourself doesn't necessarily mean stepping out of your comfort zone. It means finding where you fit now, or what you want to pursue, or how you want to pursue it. So what I like to say is that I've been looking for my comfort zone my entire freaking life. And when I find it, Matt, I ain't leaving. So I'm not like I get this a lot because I've gotten to the point where I live in a place that I love. I'm a quarter mile from the beach. I consult, I travel, but like when I'm home, I don't want to do anything. And I have a lot of friends all over the country, and they fulfill me, and family. And I get like friends who go, well, what about your friends down where you live? I go, well, I have acquaintances. Well, don't you have to have friends there? I'm like, actually, no. My comfort zone is coming home and not having to do shit other than what I want to do or maybe need to do. So if it means fulfilling for people that I'm working for, or it means just sitting out at my dock every morning with my coffee, reading the paper,
Yes.
or educating myself in a different way, that's my comfort zone. And I am delighted that I'm not there yet, Matt. I'll tell you, I'm still fighting the inner demons that we all have. Do more, say more, be more, do what other people want you to do. And I am trying to get to the place where I do what Ted wants to do.
Yeah.
And let me I just want to finish one thought on that, because people
Please.
sometimes will say to me, well, that isn't being good to people. Well, actually it is, because I don't have to do what others need me to do. I mean, I'm not talking about a friend in need. I'm not talking about somebody that needs something, or a family member. I'm talking about the person that calls you up and says, hey man, we're going out for drinks. You got to come. Nah, I don't think I'm gonna, but you're welcome to come to my dock. and I got
Yeah.
plenty of cocktails. I'm just pretty happy sitting right here, not in some crowded bar or doing something else. Or, and this goes towards a conversation we had when we caught up a couple of weeks ago, and very relevant, I think, to the podcast, is I've also found myself drinking less.
Mm,
And look, I'm not a huge drinker, but I like my cocktail every day.
sure.
But I also am cognizant of friends like you and others, to the point where I look at myself and every once in a while I'll just put it down and give up a week or something, because I like to show myself, prove to myself that this is not something I have to have. And then this January came along, and a few of my buddies were doing dry January, and I said, well, that's a great idea. And what I discovered was I really liked it.
Yeah.
Like first of all, I wear an Aura ring that a lot of people have discovered, and it tracks my sleep, and I use it to help me get better sleep. And I watched as the month went on how my sleep got more consistent and better.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Which is an issue for me. Again, we all got to recognize. Everyone says, "Oh, again, your age is what you think." No, your body ages. Your need for sleep changes. Your need for recovery changes. I have a really dear friend who's in the coaching and fitness space, and she likes to say just turned 60, and we were talking one day, and we're talking about how we can still do everything we used to be able to do. We just don't recover as quickly.
Yeah.
So, it's so sometimes you don't recognize that, because you're like, well, I was out there, I was skiing, it was great. Well, maybe this time when you're skiing, I need the next morning off or something like that. But back to the drinking, I just discovered that. So I invite people over, like they're now probably at least 3 nights a week. I'm drinking like a mushroom cocoa, evening drink out at the dock. And it's very funny. I think you followed me enough that, especially during COVID, I would post my drinks every night. So during
Yep.
COVID, we all try to find things like to keep connected to people. So I got fortunate. An entrepreneurial old friend of mine, just by coincidence, was visiting. He's a digital nomad, so he has no home, and he got stuck here during COVID. I was very lucky. For the first 6 months of COVID, I had a roommate, and I've got a nice size 2-bedroom place, and we're very like-minded. It was great having him here. But we made up like a calendar, and we did COVID cocktails. And then since then, kind of every night when I have my cocktail, I post my whatever whiskey I'm drinking or bourbon or whatever. And just the other day, I posted a 0 alcohol Guinness, which, by the way, is fabulous. But I'm not drinking regular Guinness anymore at home. I mean, this stuff is so good. And he made a comment like, I didn't recognize you. Was that really you? And I on my Instagram post, and I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, 0 alcohol? And I'm like, well, clearly you haven't been paying that close attention lately. Not that I expect my friends to see every day that I post and all the crap I'm doing, but I have weaved that in to the point now where, like I said, instead of a cocktail every night, it's probably 4 nights a week. And it makes I sleep better, and it makes me feel better. And that's more of a discovery than a need. And I think, a lot of us have to keep our eyes open to just not necessarily things that we have to do, but things that we discover in our everyday activities that can better our lives.
Yeah. I mean, health and wellness is my number one priority in my life. On top of,
Mm-hmm.
obviously going to meetings every single day, working with my sponsor and being of service to others. Right. I do every night I do sauna and cold plunge as part of my nightly routine. And, it's not only great for recovery, but it's actually great for sleep because it releases toxins, but it also releases things that help you sleep and fall asleep more quickly and stay asleep. And as we get older, sleep is the number one kind of thing that can directly impact your health. Not to mention the byproducts of, things like, drinking alcohol and things like that. The, I think, part of why I'm doing this is a lot of the way that we manage our lives. And I think to your point, the older I get, I also prioritize. I also, really specifically focus on like, what's important for me for my own happiness. And, because as we get older, and especially in big corporations, right? It's always about doing something, and it's always about what you didn't do, or it's always about somebody else. And certainly that's an important aspect to it, but there's also the boundaries aspect of working with others, and that's always a challenging thing. So I think prioritization of your life and prioritization of how you do things is absolutely critical, and it's made me a better person in terms of how I show up, what I do, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being a teammate, whether it's being in service. It helps me show up to be the best version of myself.
No, I hear you. But I think people also have to keep in mind that there's different points of your life where those things are harder and more challenging than others. And as all of us recognize, there are sometimes things you've got to do, whether it's focusing on work more than your family at a moment, or it's keeping a job that sucks, but you need the job. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I have these days with younger people that I talk to a lot, and I kind of mentor from a distance. I don't want to be anybody's mentor. I just don't want that responsibility right now. But I mentor a lot of people, or I'm an ear to a lot of people. And one of the things I find most challenging is them. There's been such a culture now of only work at what you want to work at. Only do. Hold on a second. Someone's texting me, and they're going to start texting a lot. So I'm going to do not disturb.
Do not disturb.
So many of them have been told only do what you like and only keep a job if you love it. And, look, there are obligations in life, but there's more than that. It's also just about, like my dad taught me, like you're not happy in a job, fine, but find a new job before you leave your job. Or if you're
Absolutely.
out of work, do whatever you have to do. Like there's someone I'm connected to whose partner has been out of work for over a year now, and she's just waiting for the next job. And I'm like, well, and finances are an issue. So we're not talking about it doesn't matter, or I'm like, well, go drive an Uber or get a bartending job or get a waiting job or do something. Don't just sit around and wait for your next thing. But also, one of the biggest challenges I have is explaining to people, don't quit your job until you get another one. I mean, if money's not an issue, that's great. That's awesome. But again, I'm not talking about a job where you're being demeaned or where something horrible is happening. I'm talking about you just don't like it, or you're not happy. And there are times we do have to do things that might not be in our best interest because it's in the best interest of people we care about.
Sure, absolutely. Let's kind of take a little bit of a left turn here, Ted, and talk a little bit about marketing in 2025. As opposed to marketing in the late 90s. In a lot of ways, and of course obviously I have to do a lot of my own marketing, social media, posts, things like that for this podcast. A lot of things, in my opinion, haven't changed. Obviously the technology has changed. It's made things more efficient. AI has obviously helped automate a lot of processes that otherwise would have been human oriented. What in your opinion, as an expert marketer, in the years that I've gotten to know you, what do you think has changed? What do you think has gotten better, and what do you think has gotten worse?
Well, first I want to clarify, at this point, I don't know if I consider myself an expert marketer. I just don't think I'm in the trenches enough to really call myself that. I'm more of a person with opinions and an observer that's willing to share about those things. Things are changing so fast right now that if you're not in the trenches, I was just at a Brand Innovators event, and Sarah Sachs from Coca-Cola just made a great comment when they were talking about hiring. And she said the most important quality they look for in a candidate is agility. Because things are just changing so fast. And if now she didn't share with us quite how you recognize that agility, but there are things you can look at and you can see and you can discuss, but I just think things have changed so fast. But back to your original comment, certain things haven't changed. I mean, reach, frequency, having conversations, differentiating yourself. I would say the biggest challenge right now is just the huge amount of clutter.
Mm.
I think breaking through the noise is incredibly, incredibly difficult, especially considering that most offerings are commodities. And when I say a
Mm.
commodity, I just mean that there's so many other options. Like, very few people have a truly unique product that people can't buy anywhere else. I'm sure you've done this. You're on Facebook or Instagram and you see some really cool product in a video. And by the way, way too many of those freaking videos. It's not even like there's not, you can't even see your friends' posts anymore because all you see is ads. But we get attracted by them every once in a while. So what do? You look at it. Then you say, I'm going to go to Amazon, see if I can find this there, and you find 50 of the exact same thing, and
I call that the rabbit hole of Alice in Wonderland, man. And just all of a sudden you're just going down this tunnel of
but imagine
nonstopness. Yeah.
you see all these identical products. Now,
Yep.
I would venture a guess that at least 30% of them are the exact same product with different names being manufactured by the exact same company and just trying to get your attention because they're so close together. I mean, there's so many things going on right now in media and in social media that are illegitimate and are masking really the truth of what you're looking for. Or let's talk about a big thing that I always pushed in marketing and I still think is important, but has been basically dropped by most consumer brands, is engaging with your customer and listening to them via social media. Now, try this one day. By the way, I don't know this for a fact, but I would wager a guess that if you advertise with Facebook, they make sure anybody that posts a negative post about you on Facebook gets absolutely zero visibility. So it used to be that you could say, I had a really bad experience at Lowe's, and the manager at the Pompano Beach store, blah, blah, blah. And first of all your friends would see it, like it, comment on it. A lot of people would jump in and talk about their bad experiences. And within, if they were a good brand, 5-6 years ago, maybe even as recently as 3 years ago, they would jump in and engage with you. Doesn't happen anymore. Now, I have enough fans and followers that I know when something's getting zero visibility. So I'll post a post about my daughters and I'll get 40 likes in an hour. I'll post about a bad experience at a brand. And by the way, I didn't have a bad experience at Lowe's. So in case anybody else is listening, that was just, I go there a lot now because I'm working on I own a building and I have a lot of apartments that I got to buy stuff.
I love going to Lowe's and Home Depot, man. It's like home goods for men.
but my point is that you get zero, like literally I get zero, not even one like.
Yeah.
And it's very, very clear that the algorithm has been set, and all these brands advertise with Facebook. And I'm positive, just like with political posts,
Yeah.
they are gaming the system. And what I've also, people say to me, do you notice that you can't even get a brand to answer your emails anymore? They've all dismantled their social media departments that engage with people. Their social media departments now strictly observe and then react in ways representative to maybe just the mindset of the brand or learning, but there's very little engagement unless there's something really bad. And they don't engage publicly. They send a private message, and most brands have auto replies. So you used to be able to go onto Twitter and communicate with Delta Airlines, with a number of other companies. Now you just get an auto reply that directs you to a site to post what your issue is. And
yeah, I totally agree with you. And speaking from experience, obviously I have a cold plunge company, and I make it my priority to have a direct relationship with every person that decides to work with me. And I just saw a little thumbs up. That's pretty cool. I make it so. I also make it so that they have multiple ways to reach out to me to ask questions if they have an issue, which thank God so far, haven't been like too many. But a lot of these product companies, to your point, they hide behind an email, they hide behind a contact form. They have these policies that make it very hard to return things. It's almost they just are removing the human interaction, component of product and customer relationships. And and I think the algorithm of whether it's Facebook or Instagram or what have you, they're constantly listening to you, and they're constantly monitoring what you're searching for, and it just becomes this this constant hamster wheel of shit that you're getting, versus like just simplifying it. And almost and I think the nature of speaking as an addict, and the nature of like how things pop up and are constantly showing me things, you can see why they're doing it, because they're taking a lot of the formalities of like how addiction operates, and they're moving that into like an advertising model.
Well,
So it's just interesting.
I'll tell you, for me, what's changed for me is I much prefer B2B marketing now, because B2B marketing is much more direct. It's much more inclusive, and it's a much smaller universe. So I like, in other words, consumers, there's just thousands, millions of them out there. Most B2B brands have a limited universe of prospects of who they would like to be doing business with, especially at any given moment. It might change over time as they redirect or enter a new silo or enter a new level of whether it's enterprise or small, medium or medium-sized businesses. But what I like about that is they are listening, because to them, that one customer can make the quarter, or that one connection, or that one embrace of somebody who, whether they complain or write a positive post or whatever it happens to be, that they can then share or communicate with. And it's as simple as looking at your likes, or just people that view your posts gives you insight into potential brands or potential customers that could be doing things. So
yeah, I always find as well, like, that I pay attention to those that are offering content not just about themselves.
right.
They're actually talking about something that's of importance, whether it's, in my case, I talk about openly about recovery and addiction and the things that I'm doing. Obviously, I put this podcast onto LinkedIn and to Instagram and Facebook, talking about it. I oftentimes don't talk about, like, successful sales techniques, stuff like that. Like, I think it becomes overkill. There's a guy who was on an episode a few episodes ago. His name's Ian Cognac, and he's a very close friend, successful seller. He has a sales coaching company, very successful, like, multi-million-dollar organization, growing marketing team, like the whole lot, right? But when you see him put his content up there, it's talking about issues and wrapping those issues into what he does, not talking about what he's selling. And I think there's a lot to be said about that.
100%. Look, I've been talking about this for years and years. Share
That's what
content.
makes you an expert, by the way. That's why I think you are.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, that's what makes you an expert. I think that's because you've been saying this for many, many years, and people respect you and listen to you.
For years, I've been saying, when you want to engage with people, you want them, you don't want them to look and go same old, or there's the same thing. You want to know who they are as people. Look, we all have a view into each other's lives. Again, I'm 67. So when I first got into business in the 1980s, it was very easy to separate your business and personal. Nobody really had a view into your personal,
Right.
The way it tended to cross over was just that you made friends at work, but they usually were not your boss or the people above you, or even people in other groups. They were the people, the sales guys you worked with, or the marketing team you worked with.
Sure.
Now everybody has a view into each other's lives. And because of the ability we've been given to do multiple things and be a bigger part of our families and children's lives, we are leaving early or taking 2 hours off to go to our kids' game, and then we'll be back online later. So you don't just say, I'm offline for 2 hours, don't bother me, block it out, it's all squared off. No, it's, my son's playing in a baseball game, I got to run. I'll be back online in about 2 hours. So now you've just shared, obviously, something very personal, and that happens all day long. So I just think that, these things are very much related. And when you're trying to connect with people through business, when you talk about other things, you share things about your personal life, you share something that's very unique about you, something that people make it
That's what people identify with. That's how you create that connection.
and make it easy for them to have a conversation with you. So, I post my socks, and this started back in
Yeah.
2009. I wore funky socks. I didn't sit in a room one day with a bunch of people and say, how can I make myself noticeable? What about socks?
Yeah.
I wear a funky Perry day. I just wore them. All of a sudden, a group of bloggers took notice. They started taking pictures. Every day they'd start asking me what socks I'm wearing. But what's cool about it is that people notice those things. They know when I'm coming into town because on every flight I post my Ted Psaki. And then
Yep.
people ask me to pull up my pant, or what are you wearing today? Or they show up with a pair of socks for me. And what is that? It's a conversation starter.
It's
something that-
memorable.
it's
It's memorable. It's what you're doing that's separating you from everybody else. It's creating something that's unique. It's creating a persona that is different from others, and people like different. They don't like the same thing.
And think about this. If you're in sales, and to a certain degree, we're all in sales because whether it's selling our next job or, moving up in the company or whatever, but especially if you're in sales, and I know you can relate to this, what is our biggest challenge as a salesperson? It's starting a conversation with someone at an event or a place. Your company pays for you. They fly you to the East or West Coast. You go to an event. You're expected to make relationships. Everybody is there trying to connect with these people that have money or budgets to buy. So what's better than someone coming up to you and starting a conversation?
Yeah.
Or saying, "Hey man, I saw your socks today," or just waving to you because you're wearing a "Be Good to People" shirt, and they go, "Man, I love that you wear these things all the time." And what did I do? I got buttons made and all these other things. So when I'm not wearing my T-shirt, I've got a hat or a button or something. I walk onto a plane, and 9 out of 10 times the flight attendant goes, "I like your button." It starts a conversation.
Yes.
The TSA guys in Fort Lauderdale call me the "Be Good to People" guy. The freaking TSA guys. I mean, who talks to those guys? But they go, "Hey, the "Be Good to People" guys here." Because whenever I travel, I wear a shirt or a button or three of them because it starts a conversation. And there's nothing better if you're in sales is having a conversation starter that somebody starts with you versus you having to chase them down.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, that's something that I have always made as a core part of my approach to speaking and dealing and working with others is always know who that other person is. Always think about, where are they coming from? Do your research, like find out, what they're passionate about and use that as the opening conversation. Nobody gives a shit what you're fucking selling. They really don't. And it might provide something of value, but they're buying from you. They're buying from like, do you actually care about what I'm really going through, and how do we connect on those levels? And I think that's the key, right? And that's something that you've always talked about.
And that's how you differentiate yourself, because sadly most people don't use those tools. So I tell a story often. I graduated college in 1980, got my first job, and my job was to get appointments to sell something. Like, we don't have to get into what it was or where it was, but my dad calls me up at the end of my first week and he's like, "So how you doing?" I'm like, "Great." He goes, "Did you get an appointment?" Because he knew like the goal was to get that first appointment. And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "When is it?" I said, "It's Thursday." He said, "What time?" I said, 10 o'clock. He said, "What time are you going to get there?" I said, "I don't know, about 10 to 10. He goes, "No, get there at 9 o'clock in the morning." Now remember something. This was 1980. You know how we found out about companies and people? Microfiche. It was this film that you scrolled
Oh
through
yeah,
the library with old articles and such.
use that in college.
Or there were directories where you could find the name of an employee. But he said, get there early, walk around the neighborhood, see what restaurants there, what business there, get into the building, look up at the board of companies, find out what else is there, and get to the office 15 or 20 minutes early and see if the person you're meeting, if their assistant, can let you into the office early. Look at the walls. What's up there? Photos, diplomas. Are they a golfer? Are they a father, a grandfather, a fisherman? Find points of emotional connection other than what you're trying to sell, and walk into that office with nothing. No briefcase, no folders. because the person sitting next to you or across that desk or that table is only going to be looking at what you're holding and not paying attention to what you're saying. Now, today, I go as a consultant or as an advisor to some of these meetings, and I listen to the person who's supposed to be creating this relationship. First question they ask is, hey, man, how long you been here? Seriously? Did you not look at LinkedIn? LinkedIn. It's the most basic thing in the world. There's two better questions than that. One, if the guy's been there for a few months, you can say, hey, Matt, I see that you're new here. What can we do to support you? If that person's been there for 12 years, you can say, Matt, oh my God, you've been here for 12 years. Please share with me about the company. Let me understand more about this business, because clearly you know a lot about it. You need to use the tools that are available to you. And what amazes me is how many people connect with me without a personal note. I never send a LinkedIn connection without a personal note mentioning how we met or what we did or something. Yeah. And then I never accept one, whether I get a note with it or not. And by the way, most without notes, I don't accept. I will write back and go, I don't accept,
right,
without a note. Would you mind letting me know what this is about? Of course, unless it was like right after our podcast and Matt reached out. But even then, I'll probably say to you, hey, man, you should have sent something like, hey, the podcast was great. I can't believe we're not connected on LinkedIn, which of course we are, and connect. But I will always respond with thanks for reaching out. It was really great to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better in the future. And,
absolutely.
I add into my contacts files, usually I can probably go back in my contact file right now. I would venture a guess, and I don't do it with everybody, but I will have a note there for when I first met you. I will put a note in, and I'll very often include one of the first emails I have with that person, so I can check and know when we met or what it is. I'm curious if I have that for Matt Barkoff. It isn't always a guarantee, because you make such an impression on people, you don't always have to take notes.
That we could go in a lot of directions on that comment, but
we met at 1111 Bay Hill Drive.
Yeah,
and
in San Bruno.
You at the time were director of enterprise sales at Dynamic Signal.
Yeah.
And I remember that day because that was my first time in the office, and it was the early days of Uber. And I had been letting someone use my Uber account. I'm not going to mention who it is. We can say that offline. But apparently he was very nasty to the Uber drivers. And at the time, I didn't know that they rated passengers. I thought you just rated the drivers.
Yeah.
I'm up in San Francisco. I'm trying to get an Uber to take me down to Palo Alto to meet with you guys. And I can't get a car. And finally, I get a car, and the guy pulls up, and we get in the car, and he's, a really nice guy, and he's chatting, and we're chatting. He says, you're a very nice guy. And I said, thank you. And he goes, no, really? I said, thank you. He goes, why do you have such a bad rating? I have a bad rating. He goes, yes. He goes, but you're a very nice man. I'm going to give you a really good rating. And then he said, do you let anybody else use your account? I'm like, oh my God, like that's done. And the person that used it would always pay me. It was like early days again he just hadn't signed up. He didn't bother doing it. And immediately after that happened, my rating went up to a 5. But I remember coming to the office, and you were one of the first guys. I'm there. I don't really know anybody, but Ajay, who brought me into the company at the time.
Sure.
And you were like the first guy to come over to me and welcome me. So.
Well, look, in our last couple of minutes together, Ted, I want to talk a little bit about, because by the way, I just have to say, for a guy that is 67, you still look the same as when we first met 12 years ago, if you can believe it. You look healthy, you look well, you look happy. You always are, wearing things that are, of positive message, which I appreciate, which I totally dig about you. What would you say in closing, if you were to, because I think one of the things that I always, because younger folks reach out to me, whether it's through, the sobriety program to ask me like what I'm doing, whether it's through Instagram, whether it's through LinkedIn. I think there's a lost art to relationships, and I want to close on this because return on relationship is is your trademark. I feel like it's a lost art. And if you were to kind of sum it up around what individuals could be doing better around that, what would you say to them if you were to kind of talk about, especially like, younger folks that want to have a career, what is really, really important, whether it's a marketer, or whether it's an executive of a company, like what is important around that? I think you are a really good person to tell that story.
Well, I'm going to share three of my favorite one-liners for you, and
Okay.
they're things I live by. So, first of all, relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. And what people fail to realize is that it's a graduating effect. So you can't just build relationships when you need them. You can't lose a job and then say, okay, now I'm going to get active on LinkedIn. Or, this coaching advisor advised me I've got to go out there and do more and say more and connect with more people. Start it when you're young. Like I see all these young people that work at Brand Innovators. And Brand Innovators doesn't give you a lot of formal training, but what it gives you is a huge ability to connect with people. And I tell them, you should be building your connections. Like you should connect with every single person you meet at these events, but then continue those connections. So clearly we all connect with a lot of people. And this is very direct advice. So I'm not just giving you a one-liner, but clearly we can't take all those people and communicate with them every day. But what I try to do is every day I serendipitously connect with people. So there's
Yeah.
people like all of us have on our calendar, or people we have to reach out to because we want to, or dear friends that, I haven't spoken to Matt in a while. But there's also all these other people that you've touched that you haven't heard from you in forever. And it can be as simple as going onto LinkedIn and liking and commenting on a few posts of people you haven't spoken to in a while. It can be
Staying
sharing
connected.
in a direct message. It can be what I like to do. I have a newsletter dedicated to sharing other people's content. So I have two newsletters. One goes out on Sunday, and it's my content from my blog that I posted that week. On Wednesdays, I serendipitously share somebody else's post without even telling them most of the time to my 5,000 member marketing database.
That's amazing.
And it's, and I will very often then, that person will, of course, they'll see me, I'll tag them, and then I take the post. It's on my returnonrelationship.com blog. I share it to LinkedIn, to Facebook. It also gets people to reach out to you. And here's another thing. If you're posting on LinkedIn, and if you're not, I would recommend that you do, even if you just share, like we talked earlier, other people's content that you think
Absolutely. That's okay too.
But I look to see who likes those posts. And
Sure.
I reach out to them directly. I send them a message like, Matt, nice to see you like my post. It's been a long time. We should catch up. And I've also tried to teach that to my B2B clients. Like they'll go, oh, yeah, you posted. Big deal. It got 20 likes. I go, did you look at who liked it?
Yeah.
Did you notice that the global head of partnerships at Google liked that post?
Yep.
Do you even realize that I then sent him a personal message? And he's like, oh my God, Ted, it's been forever. We need to break bread. This is how you, and what ends up happening is you build a reputation for yourself. So a brand is what a business or person does. A reputation is what people remember and share.
Yeah.
So if you do this enough, people will then comment about you that way. So that's really direct advice. And then also start using, this thing. It's really cool. You guys, everybody have an iPhone, right? Okay. It's got all these apps on it. Well, there's this app that most of you guys don't even know exists. It's a phone, or it looks like a phone. And it actually
call
has,
somebody.
Let me see this. It's got these numbers.
Yeah, call somebody. Pick up the phone, call somebody.
Somebody will pick up the phone. You can actually talk to them.
Yeah, it's not just a novel concept.
and don't leave your voicemail full, so nobody leave a message. That's like, leave me alone. Now, again, you're right. Most people don't do this, but that's how you separate yourself.
Yeah.
And periodically, just pick up that phone once a day. And by the way, I know it takes time. I know often when you get on the phone with an old friend like Matt, I think we talked for over an hour the other day. Now
Yeah.
that can bite into your day if you don't have that kind of time. So do it once a week. Do it when you're driving somewhere. My buddy John Andrews, my ex-business partner, what I love about John is every time he's in the car, he's calling people. When I do my
Yeah.
road trip
That's,
over the summer, I post on social media, I'll be in the car tomorrow for 8 hours. Here's my phone number. If you want to talk, call me. Because I get all
yeah.
these people, hey, can I pick your brain? They want to talk to me. Well, here's a great time to do it. So those are some really transactional ways to do things. And
Yeah.
then a couple of the other things I like to say is that a network gives you reach, but a community gives you power.
Yes.
Networks connect, communities care. Directly related to your Sober Cold Bear podcast, because what is recovery all about? It's about the community of support.
It's about who is there to support you and who are you there to support. Yep.
And this is true when it comes to anything, your family, your friends, your business. When you lose a job, what do? You reach out to your community. If you reach out to people you met once 3 years ago, the odds of them helping you, there are people like that. I try to help whenever I can for something
Sure.
like that. But the odds are less than Matt Barkoff, who I reach out to, who says, dude, I've been through the same. Anything I can do, let me open my network to you.
That's what I do all the time.
And then back to like messages, one of the reasons I like t-shirts and hats with messages is they're back to our conversation about conversation starters, is people come up all the time and they go, what's ripple on? Well, every action creates a ripple effect.
Yes, it does.
Start a ripple, make a difference. The purpose of this hat is ripple on, meaning make ripples every day, because those ripples will not only help other people, they'll help you. And what I've learned, people sometimes will look at me, and every once in a while, we live in a very politically conflicted environment right now.
Yes.
And people see me wearing a Be Good to People t-shirt. And sadly, sometimes I get people that think, they look at me and go, what's that all about? And I'm like, well, it's kind of self-explanatory. Be good to people. Are you trying to tell me I'm not being good to people? I go, no, truth be told, this is more of a reminder for myself.
Sure.
Because like anybody else, I can get aggravated. And, when I'm wearing something like this, or it's become a part of who I am, it's made me stop and think before I get annoyed at the person that's, my favorite is the one who stops at the bottom of the escalator. Like, dude, it's moving. There's more people coming down behind you. But instead of being a jerk, you just say, excuse me, just be careful. Or, I'm on a plane and you got that person who is listening to a movie on their laptop without headphones. I carry spare headphones and I go, hey, maybe you forgot these, hopefully they'll help. And it's just a nice way with a smile, instead of saying somebody, hey, jerk off, we don't all want to hear the movie that you're watching and we can't see it. So,
so good.
That's the way I'd like to leave everybody is
I love it.
Do things that make a difference, build community, be good to people, and have great conversations like these.
I love it. I mean, the ripple effect is such a good one, man. Ted, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for being here and for spending your time and dropping just incredible experience with everybody here. You can reach Ted in a number of different ways. As he mentioned, he's on LinkedIn. Find him there. He's on Instagram. He's got return on investment. You can Google him. He's quotable. He's terrific. I've seen him speak a billion times, and he's fantastic. This is the end of our time. Ted, thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother.
By the way, I'd like to make it even easier for your people. My email address is tedrubin@gmail.com.
Perfect.
My email address for years and years. Feel free to reach out. I respond. And my phone number is 516-270-5511. If you are someone that knows how to use your voice and talk on the phone, give me a call. I'd love to chat.
And he answers, people. He answers. All right. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for being here. This kind of wraps up our episode 8 of the Sober Cold Bear podcast. Just remember, folks, obviously we didn't talk a lot about sobriety today. We covered a number of topics, but sobriety comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. Everybody has a different journey. And just remember that you can't do this alone. It's something that you cannot do alone. Ask for help. Ask a loved one. Ask your friend. Call Ted. Call me. Reach out to somebody who can help you. Community There's tons of communities out there that want to see you become the best version of yourself. And that's what life's all about. As long as you can focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you can show up for yourself, and therefore you can show up for others and bring love along with every journey that you're following down. So, Ted, thanks again, brother. We're going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll talk soon. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Sometimes I feel like I want to fly without no wings. I elevate inside my mind, and sometimes